15 weeks out from the Tampa Pro. Today we're talking about my weight problem, also going through a push day, and my bicep problem. And we have a question too about how fat should you get in the off season allowably before you do a mini cut. So let's dive in today. First off, my weight problem. Last update that I spoken to y'all about, I was 240. Well, I ended up coming down a little bit and hitting a low of 237.8. Visually, this looked tighter. Of course, on my off day afterwards, per the normal, I came up in body weight, which kind of gives me some insight to potentially a training day for me, I really do expend a lot of calories on those days. This is also a non-cardio day, this off day. It's usually our day that Renee and I go to the movies, and we saw Dungeons and Dragons, which was cool. So recommend that one. But knowing that might be some decisions going forward around that day, if I do need to make food a little lower on that day, but closer to maintenance, or make sure a step count happens to truly just make sure weight can stay down. But I don't want to chase weight either, because I did come back down this week close to 239. Now today, the day I'm making this video, I'm right at 240. So this has also been a week of, with the extra clean in that I've had, continually to have a harder time keeping heart rate up during cardio. So I'm pretty much fully on the spin bike. Use the step mill some days, but it is a challenge to keep my heart rate on average around this 120 to 125 mark. And today being 240, and we can see from my visuals that in posing today, these are post training. But I, for one, the cool thing is I think this is just the roundest and fullest I've ever, in most condition, I've been at 240, which I'm relatively pretty lean. I mean, you can really see in my side quarter turns, like the detail of my glutes throughout the obliques. I don't think I've ever looked like this at 240 before. So, and coming at 15 weeks out, the condition's fine for this stage, but the weight, if I am to get down to 212, gosh, it just seems like I have to make the decision to chase body weight down or just chase condition. And body weight is what it is, which I'm for kind of just coming down to the best that I can be. And if I am unable to make 212, so be it. I just kind of want to see out that best version, which would be really cool. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as the week goes. This update for y'all, and also this session, is midweek. So I haven't actually done my official check-in day for myself, which is in 2 days, to where I'll really sit down and look across 7 days what's been happening, because over these days, I've definitely felt like I am pulling down. I can feel it in my face, which is probably weird for some people to hear, but if you've been on prep, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You just feel your face start to thin out, like you smile and you can feel more crinkly lines in your skin. Feels tighter to your face, and seeing things visually occur. So I might have a drop because my legs do feel a little bit more fatigued. It was a little harder posing them today, so there might be some artificial, that's probably why that weight came up a little bit, artificial weight increase from water, and not, of course not. Probably that I'm still in deficit. So we might come back down to a low at the end of the week, but I'm just waiting till then to really see what changes I want to make and make the call. If I am able to push fat loss a little faster and not sacrifice the size and fullness that I have, I absolutely will at this early stage of the game. So yet to be determined for the week. But diet-wise, the same diet I've been running. I'm right around 3,200 calories on training days and 2,600 calories on off days. Cardio is still 5 days per week. My off day is on leg day, and the day following leg day, which is a complete off day from cardio and training. 25 minutes. Heart rate averages around 120 to 125, keep it there. And that's where I've been at. Definitely noticed more hunger throughout the day. I'm hungry right now just talking to you, which is all positive signs that we are in a deficit and grinding away. My last update that I did, caliper sights came down a little bit on my glute, which is a positive. And still, for an output perspective, still getting around 10,000 steps per day. And why I say around is because that's my minimum, but usually it's 10 to 11 is where I kind of range in. And I haven't made any PED changes outside of the clean increase last week. That's still all been the same too, because heck, when your weight's just kind of holding and your gym performance is holding, it usually means you have plenty of PEDs present. So I just haven't really escalated them up anymore. With that also being said, I think we get into our next thing, is the push session. And the problem of the push session is I did push on Sunday, so whatever this is, 5 days ago. And the next day, I was like, my bicep felt tight. And then I looked down, and you probably don't see it in the video, but there was like this, just the faintest kind of a slight bruise there. And I was like, when the hell happened? Did I just strain my bicep? Like, doing push? And thinking back, like I was doing some laterals and I felt like this like slight little sharpness in my front delt. Went away, did the rest of the push session, not a thing about it, never felt anything. And this is what the next day that it kind of set in. And there's a lot of tie-ins around the front delt. There's, of course, the bicep tendon runs through that front delt. You have your pec minor lies around here, the coracobrachialis, and those do function in shoulder flexion. So it likely could have been, maybe I got a little bit more into the front delt territory in that lateral raise I was doing. It could have also very well been in any of the pressing I was doing too. The positive though is that I did pull the next day and I just didn't do any direct bicep work and was still fully able to train back. The day after I had a massage scheduled and had some Graston work done on that area, which if I'm gonna have any massage work done, like I want someone that is certified to do Graston. I feel like that actually has some pretty good application in helping to change tissue versus just like cupping or something. But anyway, overall, like today feels really good. I did push through the session, but I did make a couple modifications. So let's get into the session. First thing first was my lateral raise. Not doing the prime lateral machine that I normally do. That one just loads in the lengthen pretty heavy. You can adjust the cams in it, but what I decided to do was do a dumbbell lateral because of the freedom of motion that it allows. In that prime machine, I am pretty locked into one position. So with a dumbbell lateral, I can really position myself to make sure I can keep it well on the side delt and make sure I can have a little bit more internal rotation of the upper arm and not get any of the front delt involved. And a lot of cueing in this was, reach out to the walls. I have a slight forward tilt as well, and it worked well. It's gonna load in the shortened part of the muscle very, very good too. So no issues. I did go very slow, come up, kind of have a slight hold, control the eccentric, control the concentric. So it stayed within this kind of like 10 to 13 rep range, but did 4 sets there. Next, I was moved on to my normal incline hammer strength press. A little bit more precarious on this one. That if I went too deep, I could feel kind of like this front delt area. So the key here was just warming up slow, making sure I kept these hips out, and you'll see like how I line up. My hips are pretty far out, so it's really in line with this upper pec fiber. If I have my hips all the way back, it gets a lot more front delt heavy, and that's not really the intention that I want in this movement. And also I was just super controlled. I dropped the load about 10% and just slowly press off the pins and slowly control the eccentric. And that worked really well for me too, and was able just to stay with the same load for 2 sets without any issues there. Wait, I take that back. I dropped the load in the second set. Forgot I did that. So 2 sets. Went on to my flat press from there, which is another hammer strength machine. Much less of an issue pressing in this one. Went up to my normal load and did the top set, and then back down a little bit for a decrease in load for hitting the same rep range as what I end up doing, right around 12 reps on these. I don't get overly concerned with like locking these out. I feel best on them just having a little bit more of a slightly reduced range of motion, but the focus being out of that bottom position for pec. I realize like if I'm locking out all these sets, usually my triceps fatigue out before I get a lot of good chest stimulus out of it. From there, I was gonna do a fly, but the cables were taken, so I went to my tricep work first, which is a little different order, no big deal. Did a bilateral prime push down, 3 sets here, straightforward, nothing to really write home about. Big thing on these is getting into the stretch. I see so many people that stop at 90 degrees of elbow flexion, and man, the money part of these movements is getting the muscle fully stretched and contracting under that stretch position. From there, the cable station freed up. So I was able to move my military bench over to the cables and do these flies, which I was very cautious. I actually went a little bit lighter than normal on these in a high rep range because of just opening up and that shoulder getting kind of exposed to a lot of tension stretched. Wasn't an issue with the load that I picked, but just played it safe. I do keep the hips a little bit scooted out, so you can see that upper arm path lines up really well with kind of this mid-lower pec fiber area, and that's the intention behind this one. So I did 3 sets there, then went to my, not overhead, but more of my lengthened movement for triceps, which is a dumbbell JM press. I know it's totally a goofy movement. I like it with dumbbells, or some people call them tape presses, which the tape press used to be like you touch the dumbbells together and you like rotate them towards each other. I keep mine out, so I call them more of this JM press, but the idea is aiming them to come down right at the shoulder, and that elbow is just really far away from the shoulder joint. So basically it should really bias the tricep, get it in a stretch position. Now it's not fully stretched like you get overhead, but you see with my problem is like trying to get something overhead, it's just like my head's in the way of using a dumbbell or cable overhead. So this is my variation that works for me to get as much tricep stretch as I'm able to. So do 2 sets here. Then I move on to my ab and my calf work, which I just alternate between these sets. So I'll do a toe press and I will walk over into a glute ham raise machine and do abdominal crunches on it. And I love these on this GHR because when you get fully lengthened and more into that, lumbar extension, you're in the most loaded position. So you're loading the stretch position of the abs really, really well. And a lot of other crunch movements don't do that. So it'd be great if you paired, like one day you have like the rope crunch that loads it really short. The other day you can have your glute ham raise crunch that loads it really in the stretch position. And you don't need a lot of load if you're doing these right. Really brace the hips, keep them locked in, and you're just simply moving through lumbar flexion. And if you want, you could put your arms like behind your head. Like think of it doing like an overhead ab and thigh, and like coming to the top and squeezing. You can blow all your air out just like you would in the pose. So it kind of just reiterates that positioning for you. If you don't have a glute ham raise, take a band and wrap it around and just do like something out of like kind of like a rope crunch is really your alternative. Or if you have one of those little, is it Bosu ball, Swiss ball? I mix them up. The half balls on the ground, you can just load it like that. It's basically anything that could, get your hips up a little bit so you can do a loaded crunch like that. So anyway, go back and forth between this and my toe press. Toe press, big focus is getting that calf really stretched position. Not a huge concern if you're not getting all the way up to lockout with these. I feel like the lockout position takes a lot to really get there, and then you might limit loading out of the stretch position. So yep, going back and forth between these, did 3 sets total, 3 working sets, and that wrapped up the workout. Now, question that I did get was Bradley Q asked, how high should you let your body fat creep up during an extended off season before deploying a mini cut? So if this is an extended off season, you likely will have time for some type of fat loss phase before a prep. And so I usually tell guys, try to stay within 24 weeks of being able to prep. So this might look like you have a 16 week to 24 weeks out body fat range to kind of work within. So if you get up to this 24 week out spot, which this might be like 17% body fat for guys, 18% body fat, you diet back down to 16 weeks and then you build back up slow over time. You could extend this out a little bit farther, but I feel like if for a guy, if you're getting past this 24 weeks out to prep for a show, it's getting quite a bit of body fat present. So I would let that be the limiter. Should always have some level of ab outline present, quad lines relatively all the way up to the hip for like the visual guide there. If you're looking at your back shot and you see like your love handles are starting to like come from like spilling over slightly, that's when you say like, all right, body fat's probably a little bit too high, especially if you're seeing some other signs along the way that, appetite, digestion is really taking off, or we're starting to see like blood glucose always trending over like right at the 100 mark. Other signs you're likely getting up there and need time to do a mini cut. So that wraps up the update. Anybody else has questions for what I'm doing or questions just in general, just leave them down below. If you want to follow my prep along on the daily, you can also sign up just for the J3U forum log. You can ask me questions on anything in there, and also I fully log my prep too. So until next time, we will talk to you then.